Online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest buskeg hits. Chuck Munchie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, cute Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Al. And of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Very good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into Rochester's only local sports talk show. You found the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia, ready to kick off your long holiday weekend this afternoon, and appreciate you listening however you may be doing so. 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. We've got our stream up and rolling on our YouTube channel. You can watch, subscribe, comment. Our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester, and, of course, streaming on Twitch as well. We sound our best on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. Gino, today, the semi-heavy lift.
Let me be the first to wish you a happy Thanksgiving, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, like this is the one where, hey, maybe your office is looking a little thin today and maybe nobody's working tomorrow, but we're going to be here, well, for 2 hours because I got to get down to Fisher basketball at 6 o'clock tonight as Fisher is taking on Union in men's basketball.
As the Dandelion said on his way out the door, Gino, do you never work? Do you never not work? Do you never take an opportunity to say, I'm good?
That's tomorrow. Sorry, that's tomorrow. Like that's what Thanksgiving's all about. So I'm not going to be enjoying the Mike Danger feast, but
I told you, come by. If you're in the neighborhood, swing by. We'll create a play for you. It's not like I'm not going to have leftovers. We'll always have leftovers. I mean, you stop by and get whatever you want, pal. We'll take care of you. The preparations began last night. I mean, I'm watching Baltimore and the Chargers, and I've got a turkey stock just simmering away in the background and roasting some turkey wings for the stock and the aromatics just filling the entire house. The entire house now smells like Thanksgiving. It's on. It is officially on. It is officially on. So we wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving as well. We got a great show lined up for you today. Before we get there here, like I mentioned, a 2-hour show today as Gino heads over to St. John Fisher for some basketball action tonight on The Fan. Before we get to that, later this hour, we will talk Bills-Niners with our buddy Matt Perino covering the team for the Syracuse Post-Standard.
So, boy, all of a sudden this looks where we're thinking, oh, this is the Niners. This is a team that made the Super Bowl. I don't know. If they don't have Brock Purdy, I don't think anybody's too worried about it. Even if they do have Brock Purdy, Danger, I don't think Bills fans are too worried about this. Sean McDermott's record, as you know, perfect coming out of the bye. So we'll get Matt Perino's thoughts here on Bills and 49ers as – let's be honest. In terms of Bills news, like between the last time we talked to Matt and now, McDermott, nobody's made themselves available. So the coaches are certainly working. The players are back in town. Practice doesn't begin until tomorrow, but we'll set you up for the week here. Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, talking Bills-Niners. Bills favored by 7 on Sunday night.
We've got Rochester Americans action for you this week as well as we get into the holiday week. We got a game tomorrow night. We got a game on Black Friday, and to preview all of that and look back at the weekend that was in Amherst hockey, head coach Mike Leone stops by the sports bar here just after 4 o'clock.
I wonder how he views that weekend because, all right, you took Hershey to overtime, but you only get the 1 point. But it was a no-show Saturday. That really was. Like, I've heard from multiple people how that was just not up to par. And look, it's a long season. That's going to happen. But what does Mike Leone do? How does he coach after a performance like that? Because if it's youth hockey, or you might be doing the bag skate, you might be, hitting them harder. I don't know how Mike Leone views this little part of the schedule here, as now you're taking on two teams here. Cleveland's ahead of you, Syracuse right in the mix. So Rochester Americans hockey, going to be a lot of it Wednesday, Friday. We'll talk to head coach Mike Leone coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
And before we cut out at 5 o'clock, we'll get a fantasy football conversation in as well. Week 13 about to get underway on Thanksgiving. You'll make your waiver claims tonight, and we'll welcome in Michael F. Florio from NFL Network to give some suggestions.
Okay, so Lions, Bears. It's always more fun when you have a few fantasy guys, right, on Thanksgiving. And, well, the Lions are self-explanatory. The Bears, danger. Okay, Caleb Williams in a super flex.
I get myself in a lot of trouble on Thanksgiving because, you're supposed to be dialed in, focused on family, engaged in the conversation. Maybe the game is on in the other room or it's on in the background. I'm distracted. I'm checking my phone. I'm looking down to see where are my players at, who's scoring, who's doing what. Got some action on the game. Who's doing? Are we covering? What are we doing? Did the over hit? What do we got going? It's bad. We're gonna get yourself a lot of trouble on Thanksgiving not being engaged. You're right.
Yeah. It's so like as far as fantasy on Thanksgiving, Packers and Dolphins on. What are you playing for Miami in this matchup? There's other questions too. We can dive into 49ers Bills with Michael F. Florio because. Hey, Christian McCaffrey, that doesn't look like Christian McCaffrey that we've come to know over the years. Do you actually want to see something before you're putting him in blindly every week there? And look, the Bills have had some trouble, but it's more against the bigger backs, though. I don't know if Christian McCaffrey is like don't think twice, play him against Buffalo Sunday night.
We'll get into that and more. We'll help set your Week 13 lineups before Thanksgiving. Make your waiver wire claims tonight before you shut it down. Michael F. Florio from NFL Network stops by the sports bar right around 4:45. If you want to join us, we have time for your calls this afternoon. 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. You also can find us on Elon's Twitter. That's X at the Fan Rochester. The table is set.
That was a fun game last night. Hey, NFL. You've been giving us some good games in prime time, and the thing that stood out to me about Ravens and Chargers, okay, the Chargers are better, but they're not quite there yet. At least they're not quite on the level of Baltimore. For Baltimore to do all right, clock is winding down, it's the 2-minute warning, we're going to fake like we're going to go for it. Oh, you didn't jump. All right, we go to the 2-minute warning. And then when they come out of the break, like, wait, they're lining up. They're lining up with Mark Andrews. They get the first down. And wouldn't you know, they march right down the field and they score. So that's when the Ravens took control of that game. To me, danger, that's one of those plays that if it works, yeah, we're talking about the show, but more people will be talking about if it didn't work.
Yeah, I have a couple of observations from the Chargers side of things. I don't know how big of a loss, and I haven't seen anything to follow up on the knee severity of the knee injury to J.K. Dobbins, but he has been critical to that offense this year. He's having a really, really under the radar, really, really nice season after basically everybody kind of left him for dead, thinking that guy wasn't going to be able to come back for the myriad of injuries as he's had as a pro. So that's one thing that I think is worth monitoring. My man crush for Ladd McConkey has not let up. I mean, it stems back to pre-draft. That's the guy I wanted the Bills to select, and they went with Keon Coleman. That's fine, but Ladd McConkey was there, and Ladd McConkey. Man, that guy runs a route. Holy, he can get separation. That guy feels like he's always open. And unlike his teammate, Quentin Johnson, the TCU alum, holding on to the ball as well. Johnson not able to hold on to the ball. Lots of drops. Just an ugly performance at wide receiver for him.
Yeah, we've pointed this out on the show before, and I understand why Bills fans make the comp to Xavier Worthy, Bills Chiefs. That's the team you traded for, that you see Worthy right out of the gate scoring 2 touchdowns on opening night. I really thought it was going to be McConkey. I really did, because, yes, he lines up in the slot. He does other things. But I'm not complaining about Keon Coleman. Don't get me wrong. You'd like to have them all. I guess we're kind of looking ahead. And if you missed it yesterday, we talked to Chris Trapasso, CBS Sports. You can download the Odyssey app. You can find the segment on our website and other places. The idea of okay, we're already starting to break the seal on the draft and what may Buffalo need. And, hey, if Von Miller's going to be moving on, you could always use another pass rusher. Sure, I will listen to that. But, gosh, find the next Ladd McConkey. I mean, it is a position that maybe it's becoming like running back where, hey, there are a lot of guys that can kind of do this. Could you get – because that wasn't a first-round receiver danger.
Yeah. The way that they've built, the way that Harbaugh has kind of rebuilt that offense from the ball out, I think is good with Alt in the offensive line, and Justin Herbert's fine. There's nothing wrong with his play. Justin Herbert is still a really, really good quarterback. Having McConkey on the outside, when you consider what they might have in the backfield here moving forward in the coming years, what other pieces they might add to the outside if they can continue to solidify that offensive line, that Chargers offense is going to be just fine. And as far as the Ravens are concerned, look, they're still a force. I mean, their pass defense remains shoddy at best. But offensively, they can just beat you in so many ways. And it's a real, real challenge to try and slow them down when they start scoring at will and doing it the way that they do it. And I wanted to bring up a point that I think Belichick made. I'm not sure if he made it on the Manning cast or when he made it, but it was a point that I think is worth noting because we've spent a lot of time talking about these running backs, talking about Saquon, talking about Derrick Henry, the overall running back market, the success that they've had in Baltimore and Philadelphia with those two free agent acquisitions. Excuse me, both teams, in addition to having great offensive lines, also have the dual threat quarterback who can keep a defense on their heels with their legs. And I think that just makes so much sense. For Belichick to bring that up, and I haven't heard anybody else kind of say, hey, you've got two guys that are having great seasons, but a big part of why they're succeeding in these new roles is the pieces around them that they didn't have at their previous stops. And let's face it, Derrick Henry, the last couple of years in Tennessee, was a shell of himself because he didn't have anything around him. He was the only threat. You can make the same argument for Saquon with Daniel Jones with the Giants as well. And the Bills have a version of this as well going right now with what they have in the backfield with Cook and Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. I look at the last running back that was taken top 10, and we talked a little bit about him yesterday with Trapasso, Bijan Robinson, who hasn't really lived up to that top 10 billing. And my guess is if you want to see Bijan's efficiency improve, if and when the Falcons go to Michael Penix over Kirk Cousins, I think then you might see Bijan look more like the top 10 pick that he was selected to be. Bottom line, the Saquon and Henry stories are really nice, but those specific stories only happen with the perfect storm of an unbelievable line and a mobile quarterback.
The AFC playoffs are going to be fun here. If we just kind of took where we are coming out of that Monday night game, the Bills, it's the 2. Who would they get as the 7? Denver. Okay. Not a layup, rookie
Definitely not a layup.
Not a layup. Okay, this isn't Pittsburgh from last year, and that's not the Dolphins from 2 years ago with a third-string quarterback. The 3-6 matchup would have the Chargers at Pittsburgh, and then the 5-4 would have Baltimore at Houston. I think Baltimore would win that game, and I would put the Chargers-Steelers game as kind of a toss-up. The one team, and you brought this to my attention, and I kind of like, nah. I'm going to begrudgingly say you might have been on to something. If Miami wins on Thursday night, they'll be exactly where Buffalo was coming out of Thanksgiving weekend at 6-6. I'm not saying the Dolphins are going to go on this run, but if you get the Jets 2 more times, and yeah, they've got some W's there. All you need is the Chargers or Denver to one of those two teams just take a little half step back.
Yeah, and the Chargers and Denver still have games against Kansas City that may not go their way, right? Like, you're going to have to be looking over your shoulder for a team like Miami if they continue to stay healthy and do what they've done here over the course of the last few weeks. I mean, they're a scarier team, I think, than what we saw out of the Rams in the NFC on Sunday night, right? Because that's a team that Miami actually beat. And I love just that random. I'll get a message on X or a reply on X. Serious question: is Mike McDaniel high all the time? And I don't know how to answer that question. I really don't know.
Wait, were they playing last night? What did I miss?
No, he had a comment. They were asking him about preparing for the trip up to Lambeau, and he said, I'm just walking around with ice cubes and throwing them at players all day to prepare. Just, being the quirky kind of guy that he is. And, every time he says something that looks fishy or out of bounds, I think everybody's just like, is that guy, is he stoned? What's his deal? What are y'all on, dope? But they go to Green Bay, and I think that's a winnable game for the Dolphins. I know that they struggle in cold weather games. I don't know, man. I think they could go into Lambeau and surprise some people, win that game.
Oh, I think they get destroyed. I think it's not Jordan Love. I think it's Jacobs. I think it's that often. I mean, Miami's defensive problems, they haven't magically fixed themselves. So, look, it's still worth noting, though, even if they lose this game, it's not like you can write them completely out of the picture yet. But that's the best team to jump into the playoffs picture. Other than the 7 that are in right now, yeah, it's not going to be a big race there. I can't count the Colts for real.
The Bills have their hands full Sunday night. We'll have that action for you on the Fan Rochester as they host the 49ers in prime time. Dan Orlovsky stopped by One Bills Live to discuss how this Bills offense can attack San Francisco's secondary.
San Francisco has not stopped the run when you put 2 tight ends on the field and just run it right at them. So, again, I've talked about it a lot this year. I would expect a double tight end or a 6 offensive line group that Buffalo's kind of majored in this year and to run the ball right at San Francisco with some of their duo concepts. The second thing is, one of the ways to take your shots on San Francisco's secondary is you got to attack their safeties. And whether it's a little bit of a concept where you're trying to get their eyes down in the backfield and you can throw a big post or a cross over the top, or you double move them. And so I think that's something to look at, is talking about that run game, but in their pass game, the ball, you can kick the ball to the perimeter all you want against San Francisco. They're going to give you that stuff. How they tackle in space is a long way, but to hit big plays, you got to go at these safeties. And it'll come down to, does Josh make the throw when that is there, unlike he did in Houston, or not?
Or does Josh just give up the perimeter stuff that they give you all day and just continue to kind of take what the defense gives and go with the high percentage plays rather than the deep ball? We'll see.
Well, Maddie and Steve were talking about this danger weather. Ooh, we're going to have snow on Sunday night. To what degree? Now, they're saying don't get yourself too worked up about it, but it is going to be cold. It is going to be a little snowy. And, with that, look, no need to cover in this game, but I still, you're going to go on the break room tomorrow. I see this. There's a lot of things we don't know. I mean, if there's a liar in the NFL, like all head coaches lie, but chief among them is Kyle Shanahan. I can't believe a word that comes out of his mouth.
Right.
We're not going to learn probably until Sunday, hey, is Purdy in or not? Oh, okay, he's not in again. Actually, we'll learn that Friday. I'm going to assume Purdy isn't in. If he wasn't there for Green Bay, which was a conference game, which ergo is more important than the game they were going to be playing this Sunday night, I'm skeptical. I see the Bills winning this one by 17. I'll call it 27-10.
Yeah, we have the Niners right now getting 7 points with the over-under set 44.5. So you say 27-10. I'm going to ponder this a little bit. I'll give my prediction tomorrow morning for Tommy Tells It Like It Is in the break room. But, I think that if Purdy is out, I wonder if the 7 is assuming Purdy is out. It does, right? The 7 has to assume
they
right
have
now.
To. It used to be, hey, we don't know about the quarterback. We're taking it off the board. And then Vegas kind of realized, what are we doing this for? We kind of know, so let's take people's money. So, yeah, you don't have those games coming off the board anymore.
We got a great game in that late afternoon window on Sunday as well, too. The Eagles and the Ravens just sets up, man, for everything that we've seen so far this year, everything that we've been talking about in the last 7 days. The Eagles and the Ravens, are you kidding me? In Baltimore, that's going to be a fun matchup there leading up to the Sunday night game here. As we kind of look ahead and ponder what the weekend looks like and what the world looks like when we get back on the air the Monday after Thanksgiving weekend. That's it's going to be an interesting landscape here in the NFL.
It's so funny. I totally forgot this is the week we have a Friday game coming up, too.
Black Friday.
Black Friday game. Like, oh, that's right. We make a big deal of this when the schedule comes out. Bam, here it is. Raiders and Chiefs. Yeah. Well, then you think back to last Christmas Day, and the Raiders pulled it off. The Chiefs are giving 12.5.
Aiden O'Connell looks like he's going to be the guy, yeah? For the Raiders?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got Raider fan friends who are actually excited about the prospects of Aiden O'Connell, and all I can say to them is, why? What exactly have you seen out of him that makes you think he's going to be the dude? And Gardner Minshew beat him out. Like, okay, so if Gardner Minshew is better than Aiden O'Connell, what spark does he provide? I think the Raiders are kind of lost at sea right now. I think there's just a lot of of unknowns in terms of what their future looks like.
I felt bad. Jeff Dale over at Three Heads came up to me. We had him on week 1. Do you remember this? And oh, yeah, you were right. I mean, I don't want to be right at the expense of your favorite team kind of going down the tubes like this.
Speaking of teams going down the tubes, everybody planned their nap accordingly for Thursday because that's when the Giants and the Cowboys will be playing that late afternoon window. They will lull us to sleep with horrible backup quarterback play.
What the hell are you talking about, Danger?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you talking about?
We don't know. We don't know. I mean, I can assume, hey, your knee's bothering your kid. That's all right. We'll get a rigatoni in there. We'll get you sealed up. You'll be all good to go. Of course, Tommy DeVito's playing on Thanksgiving because he's Italian.
Daniel Jones did clear waivers, by the way, but we still don't know where he's going as a free agent. I suppose he can go call around. He says he wants to go play for a team that's contending. I would think he wants to go for a team, kind of showcase himself a little bit, right? At this point, I don't think he wants to ride the bench.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I think San Francisco might be sneaky on that.
Minnesota is another one that I've heard. Boy, you get him. I know Brian Daboll is supposedly this offensive genius, but if you get him with a Kevin O'Connell or a Shanahan or somebody like that, I'd be very interested to see what they can make out of Daniel Jones if he comes in raw like a lump of clay and they can kind of mold him and shape him within their system. That would be fun to watch.
Tell me if you agree with this take. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Daniel Jones, where should he sign? Nowhere. I would, for these moments, reset your career, relax a little bit, take in the offseason, and then find a good landing spot.
Really?
Which I would say, Baker Mayfield had a layover with the Rams. And that did him pretty well.
He had one opportunity, and he made the absolute most of it.
I mean, that went terribly wrong in Carolina. I thought he kind of got jobbed in Cleveland, to be honest.
Oh, no question.
That was terrible. And then Carolina, all right, yeah, who could win there? All right, well, Baker Mayfield didn't take a timeout. He didn't go to Cabo. How do I get back on the horse? Hey, I'll go play for Sean McVay. Won one game, and that gave the Buccaneers enough to say, you know what, let's give this guy a shot.
I actually have a Baker take that I'm going to share later on this afternoon. We'll discuss him a little bit more in depth after we get through Matt Perino, who joins us next here. Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. We'll preview Sunday night's game in Orchard Park with the Niners coming to town. More next on The Fan.
Your Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick.
Is that a corn?
That ain't no corn.
What?
That's a super corn!
Oh, wow. Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
update.
One more off day for Buffalo Bills players. Practice resuming tomorrow, One Bills Drive. Steve Tasker today on the show. Can the Bills get the run game going?
I think it could be a game for a guy like James Cook to take it, or Ray Davis, or both those guys together. San Francisco's vulnerable there, particularly without Nick Bosa in the lineup. If that's in case, this could be a game for the running back and the offensive line to flex a little bit.
We'll get the thoughts of Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, and the Shout podcast. Matt joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Looks like the Sabres are going to get back Tage Thompson. He's expected to be back in the lineup tomorrow night as Buffalo hosting Minnesota. The Sabres holding on to the third playoff spot in the division. The Rochester Americans looking to bounce back after the loss to Utica. Emmerich's back home tomorrow night against Cleveland. We'll talk to head coach Mike Leone next hour. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
I think the Bills are smelling blood as we speak. So Buffalo should be able to run the football against this team. I don't have any concerns about being able to do that. We saw what happened last week for Green Bay, just totally steamrolling San Francisco on the ground. So big opportunity here for Buffalo to take advantage of a vulnerable 49ers team right now. This team has lost some mojo, a lot of injuries as well, but mojo seems to not be on the side of San Francisco.
There's ESPN's Field Yates earlier on One Bills Live discussing some vulnerabilities of the Bills' next opponent there. The San Francisco 49ers are coming into Orchard Park. Matt Perino covering the Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. You can read his work, syracuse.com. Hear his work on the Shout podcast. Always good with this time to join us on a Tuesday as we get through the bye week, Matt. And it's time for the Niners, who are coming in a little bit banged up. And I'm always worried about a team that, can be really, really good. And you don't want to take them lightly. What have you seen out of the Niners here the last couple of weeks that might lead you to believe that the Bills should be able to handle their business on Sunday night?
Well, I think it starts with the Bills. I think it starts with Sean McDermott's history. I think he historically gets his teams up in these spots when there could be potentially a letdown kind of situation. And also, how good the Bills are off the bye under Sean McDermott. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this team, whether it be Brock Purdy or Brandon Allen. I don't think that there's really – I know this sounds crazy to say, but I don't think that there's much of a difference. I think Purdy is going to struggle in his first time seeing a Sean McDermott defense. Whether or not, he's 100%, even if he was 100%, I still think on the road in Buffalo, having to go silent counts, no Brandon Ayuk. Christian McCaffrey looked a little bit better this last week, but this just isn't the same 49ers team that we've seen over the years. And this is also another great example of why it's never a good practice to over or underreact to a schedule when it comes out in May. Because everybody had this game circled in May as oh, man, I know it's coming off the bye, but it's against the defending NFC champions, and what a tough stretch this is going to be. And now you're looking at 3 of these teams. And I know the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and they're going to be the Chiefs until they don't go to the Super Bowl. But that doesn't feel like the same Chiefs team. This is definitely not the same 49ers team. That's a very beatable Rams team. And then it's a Detroit team that I think that's going to be one of the big moments of the second half of the season for this Bills team to really measure where they're at. And then it's those 3 at the end, which are very winnable. I mean, guys, can we get a little crazy here and be thinking about maybe 15-2?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that crazy. I mean, I don't think they run the table, but I think 14-3 is a realistic conversation. And gosh, I mean, Mac, I mean, we don't really pause and reflect, but this was a team that was literally minutes away from being eliminated last year. On final game of the regular season, they needed that game to win the division. If Miami loses this Thursday night and the Bills win, that's it. It's over. It's the staying motivated part of this for Buffalo, that's not a problem, right, if the Bills wrap up the division this soon?
No, and it was interesting. I was listening to – I don't think so. And I was listening to Deion Dawkins, who went on Kay Adams a couple days ago. And it was interesting hearing him talk about this because she asked him about, okay, what does the 1 seed mean to you? And he brought up the fact it's hey, we've never really done that before, right? To get the bye, have it all go through Buffalo. I know they lost to Kansas City at home last year, but I think that this is a better version of the Bills, and I think it's a worse version of the Chiefs. And I think you want to run that back, especially when you were so close to beating them last year. And we know what happened a couple years ago when Lamar Jackson had to come on the road against Buffalo in January, and it wasn't even a filled stadium, and they couldn't do a lot of things offensively. There's still going to be the question about whether or not they could stop the run, and to watch the Ravens last night against a Chargers team that hadn't been tested to that point, finally had their first big test on national TV and kind of, failed it for the most part. I know there was a lot of drops offensively. Quentin Johnston, you're going to want a lot of those back, but they're not necessarily at the big boy table yet, and that's okay. I still think the Chargers are building under Harbaugh. I think they're going to be a real problem in the playoffs in those first couple of rounds. But I think anything you could do to get Baltimore to come to Buffalo is, to me, they're the most dangerous team of the AFC contenders.
Matt, we won't get a full injury update until the team gets back at it tomorrow, but I'm just curious as to whether or not you think we'll see some of these guys, or how we think we'll see these guys practice, whether we're talking about Keon Dalton, Spencer Brown, Matt Milano was somebody who was practicing before the bye. How do you project the health here of the Buffalo Bills heading into San Francisco?
It all seems like things are on schedule for Matt Milano, and I think that's the one that everybody's going to be watching closely this week, because it almost felt like the timing of when they opened his window gave you the outside chance or hope that he could be available for the 49ers game. But I maintain that I don't think it's any type of rush situation. Like, if he's get back to a point where we go out to practice tomorrow and he doesn't have the red jersey on anymore, and he's like a full participant in practice all week, sure. Like, then the conversation changes a little bit, and then how they use him in this game. I mean, you think about it now. They got 6 games left in the ramp up that you want to get him to where you need him to be before the playoffs. You probably want as many of these games as possible. Offensively, I think you feel a lot better about Curtis Samuel's health. Amari Cooper, 2 weeks to kind of rest that wrist. He looked pretty good playing through it a couple weeks ago. I'm not so sure Coleman will be ready. I think this could be like a one more week kind of thing. But again, it's going to be watching where he's at practice-wise. I think Spencer Brown is probably going to be ready to go. Obviously, don't want to jump the gun there, but it seemed like he was getting ready to really grit his teeth and bear it and play through that injury 2 weeks ago. So I think that he's probably closer than any of the worrisome group of players that going into the week.
Yeah, the one positive too, even if he isn't, I mean, what were your thoughts on Vandermark? I thought he held his own in the little bit we saw in the Colts game too, Matt. The depth on this offensive line.
Depth is you never know about your depth until you have to use it. And, Ryan Vandermark has had a couple of really nice summers for the Bills. And obviously everything I've heard, conversations with Aaron Cromer, some of his teammates, David Edwards has raved about Vandermark. Spencer Brown himself has talked so highly of him. You never really quite know until you see it out, against NFL caliber players in a regular season game. And he passed every test. I mean, the most important thing, like if you think about bringing in an offensive lineman, of course you want them to try to excel in the run game. It's a big part of what the Bills have built identity-wise. But you need him to protect Josh Allen. And I thought in pass protection, he was about as good as you could have expected him to be. And the interesting thing is, like, the crazy thing about building depth at that position is it is a coveted position group. I don't care if you're talking about tackle, guard, center, offensive line in general. Teams around the league, their pro personnel staff are diving into that Vandermark tape and they're salivating, getting ready to probably make him a pretty handsome offer as a free agent coming up this upcoming offseason. And it's one of those kinds of things. Like, if you go through a whole season like this and you know what you have in Vandermark if you're the Bills, and he never has to really truly play like he didn't have to a year ago because the Bills starting offensive line played every snap last season together, you kind of can almost sneak it through, and now you're really not going to be able to do that with Vandermark. I think there's a lot of people around the league that probably took notice. If he has to play any more this season, you're really excited. And it's the versatility. The guy is to a place in his career now where early on, everybody said he could only play left tackle, and he comes out there in place of Brown and puts that on tape. I think there's a lot of people excited about him.
Matt, in the spirit of talking about depth, what about on the defensive line? What's the timeline for Dwayne Carter, do we think?
Ooh, that's a great question. Again, the wrist makes it challenging because once he does get back to the practice field, it's like, how much can it take? right? And how many weeks does he need before he could be full blow? Like, I think that now that you've brought in Jefferson and Jordan Phillips, you can slow play that as well. I wouldn't even be surprised if they don't even open up his practice window for another week or two, just because I know that they can open it now. I think it's interesting that they haven't yet. Maybe we'll learn that tomorrow. But I'm not rushing that back, and you need that wrist. Like, sometimes you can get a little bit funny. I'm not a doctor, but, like, if you rush back from something like that at the position that he plays where it's every single play you have an impact on that injury, you just don't want to play that kind of game. So I think with Carter, a long-term piece for them, you went out and you gotten some reinforcements, and I know it's not going to be as good. I thought Carter was playing really good football before he left, and I don't think we've seen that caliber from any of the other three that are mixed, Austin Johnson, Jefferson, and Phillips, but I just don't think you rush him back.
Matt, I'm going to ask you a question that certainly is not your area of expertise, but is there chatter that Sunday night is going to be a weather game for Buffalo and San Francisco?
Right. I think the last thing that I looked at was, my wife's really good at this, like, because we're actually taking a little trip because we got a show down at Turning Stone Resort Casino in Verona. So we're going to the city on Friday, going to do Rockefeller Center, that whole thing. So she's been looking at the weather apps every single day, and so she told me, I think yesterday, that it looked like the weather was going to maybe subside, whatever is in store by game time, but it could be cold and there could be snow. So, yeah, that changes the dynamics of it a little bit. I think, especially if Allen has to play Brandon Allen, I think you're really excited if it's a weather game because you could really just turn this thing into a ground game. But I also don't know if that benefits the 49ers too much because I don't think that they're really great against the run, and I think the Bills have a bunch of different horses where they want to play that game. And if Nick Bosa can't play, I know that they're talking about Greenlaw being activated, his practice window activated. I can't imagine he'll play right away this week. There's still some issues at all three levels for the 49ers defense. So I think either way this game has to be played, I think the Bills are still in a pretty good spot, especially, you know that they've been preparing for that. It's been part of the game plan. If that ends up being the case, they'll probably have a plan for it if that's the case.
Hey, Matt, we're not out of line by talking 15-2, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, we called this division for the Buffalo Bills, I want to say, after week 9. I mean, we really, really believe okay, this is going to get done. But what about Miami moving forward here? I almost feel like, should we be rooting for Miami to claim one of those postseason berths to stay hot so that the Bills, maybe if they do end up with the one, have a matchup against a team that they're very familiar with, the devil that you know versus the devil that you don't know kind of thing?
No. And I could see the logic there, but I think the first reaction to that, first feeling for me is yeah, sure, go play Miami again. But, man, how hard is it to beat a team 3 times in one season? I think that's really challenging. The Bills a couple of years ago hosted Skylar Thompson, and that was a challenging game. I think you welcome a matchup against Bo Nix, a team that, listen, Denver's really good on both sides of the ball, but they've had their moments where it hasn't looked good. And I think you take your chances with Bo Nix coming into Buffalo against the Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich defense. First time quarterbacks face this defense, it does not go well for them. So I think that you probably hope that Miami can't catch up. And I think this week is the huge litmus test. Can they get past a really good Green Bay team on the road? If they win that game, I mean, all momentum is on their side. And we know, I know the weather thing is its own thing, and we could talk about what that means playing on the road in the cold weather for Tua. I do agree with him to a degree. I think it gets blown out of proportion. He's had a couple of bad games in those moments, but I think just as the weather, just as much of a culprit has been the weather as the teams that they're playing. The long and short about the Miami Dolphins is they're not as good when they have to play good teams. And I don't care if it's 90 degrees out or 20 degrees out. It's the same kind of concept. So I don't think you want to play the Dolphins, but if it ends up being you have to your point, the Bills have done pretty well against them in the past.
Well, Matt, kind of let you go here because we realized today, wait, we haven't really had Sean McDermott, any Bills player, talk since the last time we talked to you. But short week for you, Thanksgiving coming up. You've got the plans on Fridays. So tell everybody about the Shout podcast and how the schedule might be altered this week, too.
Yeah, so they're off Thursday. Full media day tomorrow. So everybody from Rochester and Buffalo will be out. The media folks will be out at the stadium tomorrow for Sean McDermott, Josh Allen. We'll have open locker room after off Thursday. And then Friday will be typical Friday, Fast Friday, and then game day, Sunday. But make sure if you're in driving distance, come out to Turning Stone on Saturday night. We're going to have a good time.
All right, I got to get a food take from you before you go. Thanksgiving, what's your go-to and what's the thing you need to keep away from yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't like stuffing.
Ugh.
I'm a big
Your food takes are increasingly worse and worse, Perino. I love you, man, but don't like stuffing.
What's in stuffing?
It's bread.
Like a hot dog.
It's bread casserole. Get with the program, Perino.
It's like a hot dog. Like it's a roll of the dice to figure out what the heck is in there. So I'm out. I'm out on that. Here's another take you're gonna hate. Love cranberry sauce.
I like cranberry sauce. Yeah, cranberry sauce is good.
I like it right out of the can. I'm not super fancy about it.
I can't judge you for that.
And I love it.
No, I can't judge you for that. That's good.
All right.
All right, man. Enjoy your holiday, man. Enjoy the time with the missus and the family, and we'll be looking for you, and we'll talk next week. What do you say?
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
You got it. Happy Thanksgiving. Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard, stopping by the sports bar.
Yeah, bring up the point about Bosa, too.
Yeah, it's a big loss.
Yeah.
It's a big loss, and should make Josh Allen's day a little bit easier if you know that guy's not attacking the edge.
15-2. Do we entertain that?
I absolutely would entertain it. Detroit. Look, a lot can happen between now and Detroit, but I think Detroit is that one game where you're like, okay, if this is a preview, everybody wants to say that these are the two best teams in the NFL right now, and if this is a preview of the Super Bowl, how does it look? How does it look? How does the Bills defense stack up against that offense with all those weapons? Their ability to run the football the way they do, the physicality of that offensive line. How does the Bills defense stack up?
For whoever comes out of the AFC, and maybe it is Buffalo this year, this feels like a tough pot, right? If you have to deal with Detroit, and you mentioned it's more than St. Brown and Laporta and their receiving crew. It's really the run game that gets that team going, and that's the one thing that the Bills have trouble from time to time. Same thing with Philadelphia, like the Eagles and their offense. Good time to do who's hot and who's cold here, Dean.
Yeah, let's talk who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football in the sports bar.
Yeah, this is what we call a sideways. 255 yards on the ground. Congratulations to everybody that had Saquon Barkley in their lineup.
Who lost with Saquon Barkley? I want to know who lost their matchup with Saquon Barkley in their starting lineup. I almost beat Richie C., who had Saquon in his lineup. Almost beat him.
That was painful. I got destroyed, but you know what, Saquon. And funny, we're talking to a Giant fan in the office, Stefan. Like, Giant fans, in a weird sort of way, a lot of them don't hate Saquon for how that all went down.
How can they? I don't think Saquon really wanted to leave. I think he just wanted to get paid. And then after a while, it's like, okay, well, you guys are just being disrespectful at this point. Get me out of here. Nobody wants the franchise tag. That's the worst.
Yeah, it's a hostile move. Who's cold in the sports bar? Okay, what would you think about a tight end that has no touchdowns this year, had only 2 catches in Week 12, and there's still a bye coming up? Drop candidate. Would you not say Dalton Schultz, Texans?
Oh, yeah.
No, drop him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that guy sat on my roster for a good chunk of the first part of the season, and at one point I'm just like, well, let's put this guy out of his misery. This is terrible. I was waiting for Hawkinson to come off of IR, right? I had Hawkinson stashed in my IR. I'm like, how am I going to patch this together? Dalton Schultz, yeah, not great. Who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football is brought to you by AirQuip Heating and Air Conditioning. It's fun and challenging to know when to start a player that's heating up or bench one who's cooling off. It's not fun to be too hot or too cold in your home or business. Make the best lineup call you can and call AirQuip today. More fantasy football talk on the way. Next hour, Michael F. Florio from NFL Network will stop by the sports bar, and we'll get his Week 13 waiver wire report. Take a quick break here. Come back with some takes next, including, I promised you, I had something on Bucks quarterback Baker Mayfield. We'll get into that.
Yeah, and we know 5 teams that have made an offer for Juan Soto. 3 of them, I think you can tell me, like right off the top. But the other 2 we can dive into. But just this whole dynamic here and why it really kind of shows baseball's not in a good spot here.
We'll get to that and more next. I'll drink to that next on The Fan.
You're listening to the The Fan, Rochester.
I know you've been paying attention, Gino. What's going on with Juan Soto?
Yeah, Juan Soto. I don't know if we get the news over the weekend, just judging by the history of Steve Cohen, right? Steve Cohen wants to drum up more interest, wants to shake teams down, and there's a report from NJ Media that says there are 5 teams that have made an offer to Juan Soto, and you can guess 3 of them, right? The Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers. It's the other 2, like, all right, Red Sox.
Sure.
Good for them. And the Blue Jays. And the Blue Jays have this pot of money that Shohei didn't take, so why not go spend it, I suppose. The report says that Mets owner Steve Cohen is ready to pay $50 million more than anybody else. So basically he's saying to Cohen, hey, we'll top whatever you get. Full stop right there. And mind you, I'm a Mets fan. How is it that Cohen hasn't been blackballed by other owners here? Well, we can't collude here, but you can't be openly treating this like your toy here. You're hurting your other partners. But I guess you can say the same thing about Dodgers ownership. I know why MLB players are anti-cap here, but because there will always be a couple owners who really can't help themselves.
It doesn't feel like they're as unified as an ownership league as the NFL is. Like the NFL, those guys are in cahoots. You could say there's no collusion, right? Collusion doesn't. Oh, I feel like collusion happens. I feel like these owners do work together.
Oh, without question. They could all pay guaranteed contracts. They don't. We saw one of them do it with Deshaun Watson. That's a great guy to choose as the first guy you want to do that. But in baseball, that is not the case. Look no further than TV. Like they say they're going to get something uniform. Oh, right. You're going to make the Yankees give up their yes money and the Red Sox give up their Nesson money. Baseball long ago went from hey, like the NFL, the greater good, right? Like we want to make sure that if the NFL baseball's model, the Bills would be the Pirates.
Sure.
It would be terrible.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. Well, the frenzy continues. And I don't know, Gino, you're a Mets fan. You got to imagine that if your owner is saying it doesn't matter what everybody's offering, I'll pay him $50 million more. Like, you got to feel good. You might have Soto wearing your colors next year.
It's a 13-year deal, $700 million. As much as that may
cash deferred to $2,100,
it'll help the Mets or whoever he goes to. But I'm going to tell you who it's going to hurt more: the Yankees. If you leave Aaron Judge unexposed or exposed in that lineup, Soto was the guy that got on base constantly. Soto was great protecting Aaron Judge. Who's going to be that guy that protects Aaron Judge? Like, if you let go Soto and the Yankees are like, we're not paying that, I get it. But what's the plan then?
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to count out the Yankees yet. Even with Cohen saying I'll pay $50 million more, it's the devil again. It's the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
It's almost like Cohen. Is Cohen just full of it, and he's just saying that to tweet the Yankees a little bit?
They're aliens, man. I really don't know. I mean, when it comes to measuring their D's, when it comes to how many dollar signs they're going to throw out there, I mean, what are these guys about? They're about how big is your super yacht? How many more millions can I feed this? And they've got so much wealth that the idea of just throwing $50 million around to attract or lure a superstar player, it's nothing. It's a nothing burger. So, well, good luck, and we'll see if we have any sort of closure on that. The other teams that are involved are interesting as well, but it does feel like it could come down to those 2 New York teams right about now. Doesn't it feel that way?
Or he ends up with the Dodgers. When we had Lee Steinberg on with us, and he was talking about it, he's pretty plugged in. He was the first guy to say Dodgers. I'm like, how could they afford that? And then, well, hold on, they're not really paying Shohei right now. It's going to be somebody else's problem decades down the road. Like, just forget it. Like, if Soto goes to L.A., well, that was fun.
Yeah. Hey, if wins aren't a quarterback stat, and we're going to discuss Jared Goff as an MVP candidate.
Why do we say that, though?
Why do we say what?
Wins aren't a quarterback stat.
Well, it's funny. I always have the same kind of like thought that wins may not be a quarterback stat, but winning is the minimum, albeit high standard, and quarterback wins are everything. It might not be a stat, but they're everything, right? If we're going to have that conversation and we're going to talk about Jared Goff in that role as an MVP candidate, I'm going to throw another NFC quarterback that needs to be involved in that conversation as well, because this season he has more completions, more yards, more passing touchdowns, more rushing yards, more rushing touchdowns than Goff. He happens to play for the only team that has beaten Detroit this season. Baker Mayfield is going to get Tampa into the postseason. They're going to win the NFC South. And by that time, he should absolutely be considered an MVP candidate over Goff. Not saying he's going to best Josh or Lamar in the AFC, but there's a lot of football left, and his play should vault him over the guy who will finish the season at quarterback with more wins and likely the NFC's number one seed. By the way, Mayfield right now plus 12,000 at FanDuel to win the AP MVP award. I'm going to have this image of Baker Mayfield lead blocking for Bucky Irving against the Giants in my head for the rest of the season. I'm going to have this image of Baker Mayfield doing the Tommy DeVito celebration in the end zone in New York. I'm infatuated with Baker Mayfield right now in Tampa. I think Baker Mayfield, I'm all in. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Well,
I love the attitude. I love the leadership. I like it all.
They're fun. They lost twice to Atlanta. So I'm not even sure they get into the postseason at this point. I mean, pull up their schedule. Panthers, okay.
It's a tasty schedule.
It is tasty. It is tasty. And they have had some tough opponents. They lost on a Monday night to Kansas City. They lost on a Monday night to Baltimore. They lost to the 49ers before things really started going south for San Francisco. That week 2 win over Detroit, that's the one thing.
Yeah. They have it in them, and if they get healthy and Baker continues to do what Baker's been doing. Did you see his reaction or his response when he was asked about the celebration?
No.
He's like, sometimes we just do spontaneous things. But your other teammates were doing it too. We wanted to give the people what they want. We know that they're there to see Tommy DeVito, so we wanted to give them what they want. The guy's amazing. The guy is amazing. Yeah, it wasn't scripted.
Which fan base do you feel the most sorry for? I'm sorry, Jet fans. I don't feel sorry for you. I mean, had to listen to how this was going to be different and everything. Sort of feel sorry for Raider fan. I really feel sorry for Giant fan.
Yeah, I think I put Giant fan. If we want to put tier, the teams in the NFL, the Giants are in their own tier that I label hot ass. That is the Giants. They are terrible. They're hard to watch. They're falling apart. They're clearly not playing competitively for the rest of the season. Malik Neighbors is popping off. They're hot ass. They're a big problem.
Yeah. And another team I don't feel sorry for. Well, maybe I feel sorry for their fans just a little bit. Jerry went on the radio this morning on an RSC sister station out in Dallas. Did you see what he said?
No.
He's not. He's floating the idea of danger, basically.
Extending Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not real.
Do it. No, it might be real. Do it. You got one win, man. You got a big win against Washington. Oh, man, they look great. Woo. Extend them.
Had nothing to do with a missed
extra
point.
The missed extra point, not one, but 2 return touchdowns. I'm sure all that's sustainable. Yes, absolutely. Extend him because that's how you win games in the NFL consistently, by return touchdowns and missed extra points. Unbelievable.
Well, and they'll beat another divisional opponent this week, and he'll be up in the box nodding. And, Yeah.
We got to get to Aberks head coach Michael Leone. He's stopping by the sports bar here in about 25 minutes or so. We have time for your phone calls at 866-4326. And we'll also be joined before 5 o'clock from Michael F. Florio, NFL Network. We'll talk some fantasy football as well here on The Fan.
You're listening Sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Bills are 7-point favorites against San Francisco coming up on Sunday night. Players off today. Practice will resume tomorrow. Dan Orlovsky on some of those line issues for San Francisco.
The main problem in San Francisco this whole season has been their offensive line is not the offensive line of old. They have not captured the line of scrimmage consistently. They get beat in one-on-one blocks consistently. And then you add McCaffrey just trying to find his way back in it. They don't dominate the line of scrimmage anymore.
We'll talk to some fantasy football coming up later this hour. Michael F. Florio from the NFL Network to join us here in the Sports Bar. Things are looking up for the Sabres coming off their 3 wins in California. Tage Thompson returning to the lineup tomorrow night. Sabres hosting Minnesota. The Amerks hosting Cleveland Wednesday. Michael Leone to join us later this hour. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Allen going to step up in the pocket. Now he's going to take it and run, and he's got the first down and more. 10, 5, and muscles his way into the end zone for an unbelievable touchdown run.
Sunday night football game featuring the Bills and the 49ers. Weather might be in the forecast.
They do have a chance to clinch the AFC East.
Dolphins lose, Bills win, it's over.
Mike Danger.
Look, there's something special brewing with Buffalo, and a desperate Niners team coming in doesn't really scare me. I just look at what they are, what they have, versus what the Bills are here coming out of a bye. You could certainly look at Sean McDermott's record as a head coach coming out of the bye. It's perfect.
Gene Battaglia.
San Francisco, and something's off there. What is it, do you think? Is it just kind of the Super Bowl hangover? Does it go something deeper? Is this a flawed team, or are they going to figure it out too here?
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
As we ramp up to the holiday weekend, we welcome you back into the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Michael Leone, Rochester Americans head coach, stopping by the Sports Bar here in about 15 minutes. We'll also get to some fantasy football with Michael F. Florio from NFL Network before we get to 5 o'clock. Appreciate you checking us out on our stream. We're on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Like and subscribe while you're there. Make us a part of your daily routine. Hit that bell, and you'll always know when we're going live. And also streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. Gino, have you allowed yourself to imagine what the world looks like when you look in the crystal ball, what the world looks like on Monday when we return from the holiday?
I think what could be surprising, we just talked about Juan Soto. I don't think that would be surprising if all of a sudden Boris allowed one of his clients to sign in early December. It seems like this may be headed for a little longer. Maybe my read on that is long. It would be surprising if the Bills lost to the 49ers. Like the 49ers, where they are as a team right now, but then you throw the injuries on top of it. I just don't see this team picking themselves up, dusting themselves off, and figuring this out in time to really kind of save their season. I see them falling to 5-8 here.
Yeah, God, that's crazy to think, right? I look at this schedule, and I don't believe everything is going to go as chalky as we think it might go. There's something about that Black Friday game that makes me feel like, all right, the Raiders maybe are getting too many points there. I think up to 12.5 now at home. At Arrowhead against the Chiefs. But it's a divisional game, and I don't know. Maybe Aiden O'Connell does provide a spark. The Bengals hosting the Steelers, if we're talking about teams that are in the playoff picture.
Yeah, they're the Steelers showing their real colors here. They got to go on the road for the second time in as many weeks. You seem to be more high on Miami in a late season run than I do. I just think this is a bad spot for the Dolphins. Short week, going up to Green Bay. Jacobs, got it going last week and continued that rolling. But would that surprise me? Sure.
Yeah, it's a couple of guys that came from the same coaching tree, so they probably know each other's tendencies a little bit. Not excited about the first 2 games on Thanksgiving, but I do think that the Bears can keep it within 10. Lions win that game. Giants, Cowboys. I mean, if you're going to schedule a nap, sleep with one eye open because Tommy DeVito, if he's out there, you're going to be watching because he's Italian.
Maybe they'll be showing a replay of the dog show at that point. Right, that's always
Is
the
that
one,
is that your routine? You go right parade, dog show, then football?
Right, well, the parade ends, and then you realize, oh, it's noon. Do I need to flip over? No, dog show is on. Okay.
You get a little bit of the dog show.
You get a little bit of the dog show.
And what's his name? John O'Hurley Peterman? Not Nathan Peterman, Jay Peterman.
Jay Peterman.
Yeah.
Yes. Do my Jay Peterman. Here is Walter. Walter has been a member of the Danger family for so long. He's such a good dog.
Oh, he is a good boy, man. I'm blessed. I don't know how I got so lucky to get this dog in my life. He's just a good boy. 10 years old now. I was looking at me like, you're an old man, dude. He's an old man.
He's an old man. Well, he's a schnauzer, right?
Mini schnauzer.
And he behaved. My schnoodle is loud and mean and doesn't really want to.
Walter's loud. He'll bark at everything that goes by the house. I mean, if he sees another dog, he's not being quiet and being chill. But and when people come over to the house, he's always excited and friendly. He wants to say hi to everybody, but he gets excited. He'll bark and he'll jump up, and I don't know. I can't get that trained out of him. But when he does calm down, when he does chill, he's just a good boy. He's just a hang. He just wants to hang out all the time. He's at the age now where I'm starting to think like, oh boy, how am I going to be when this inevitably ends?
No.
I don't like thinking about it, but I have to think about it. So, yeah, what does the world look like when we return on Monday, this being our final hour here before we get to the holiday? I think about the Amerks. I think about the Sabres as well. The Sabres are hot right now. They're getting Thompson back. They get Minnesota tomorrow night. The Amerks are looking to rebound from that effort against Utica. We'll talk to Mike Leone here in a little bit to preview this weekend's action.
Got the Nighthawks opening Saturday. Got Syracuse playing Cornell.
Mm-hmm.
There's that.
Yeah. Feels like a win, but can you really say?
Yeah.
Can you really say with how the season has gone so far? So, yeah, this is the final hour here in the Sports Bar as we head up to Thanksgiving. We wish you and yours a very happy holiday. We hope that you get to spend your time. I've been asking everybody what their plans are in the hopes that nobody tells me, yeah, I don't really have any plans. I'm just going to spend it alone. That nothing breaks my heart more. Nobody should be spending Thanksgiving on their own or alone. So if you hear that, do your part. Try to fill that void in whoever's life you may be able to impact there, because it's an unbelievable holiday. It's my favorite on the calendar. Can't wait. Italian wedding soup tonight. That's what's getting prepared.
Italian wedding. And your tree is already up from Wilbert's.
Tree's up.
Yeah.
Tree's up. House is decorated. House will get cleaned. Cooking will commence.
1 month from today. What's 1 month from today?
Tree goes to the curb. Tree goes to the curb. First one up, last one out.
That is so weird.
First one up, last one out. We clean up right. We wake up the 26th, and it's like, all right, let's get things back in order. And the tree goes to the curb. I want to say the earliest we've gotten it to the curb is early afternoon, maybe like a 1 o'clock, 1:30, something like that. So it does.
Can for my betterment in the Sports Bar show can you say no? Well, let's try to keep the tree up one more day.
I almost feel like I'd be letting the fans down at this point if I didn't get out to the curb by 12:26.
Oh,
now,
you're on board with this too.
This is an expectation at this point. I've got neighbors who are waiting. I've got friends who are waiting. They're waiting to find to see the photo of the tree at the curb or drive by the house and see the tree at the curb one day after the holiday is over.
I've heard the stories in the ye old days where people on Christmas Eve would cut the tree down, and believe it or not, some people still do that. I just didn't know people like at 6 a.m. on the 26th.
I would like, though, I actually wish we could bring that tradition back, because as much as I love the live tree and I love our tradition, I love going to Wilbert's, I love cutting down the tree. Here's what I don't love. I don't love the screams of shrieking in terror whenever a spider comes out of the live tree or it ends up on the floor or the ceiling and I get thrust into duty. I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me, but it bothers the women in my life. So in that regard, the less time we had with the tree, I would be okay with it. Still go to Wilbert, still cut the tree down. But if you're telling me that used to be the thing where you go on Christmas Eve to cut it down, I'd be down with that. With 24 hours with the tree in the house, less spiders, less shrieks of terror, less me killing bugs from the live tree. But it's a fantastic tradition, and it's a great time of year. So we return on Monday, and we'll recap everything from this extended holiday weekend that you hopefully get the chance to enjoy with your family and friends as well. Mike Leone is stopping by the sports bar next. So you had Hershey on Friday night, and you pushed the champs to overtime. Then Utica, just kind of a disappointing effort.
To say the least. I mean, I could call it a no-show. Let Coach, put it in his own words. But, what's his message to the team after that? And how do you handle professionals after you don't show up in front of your home crowd like that? I'm curious to kind of you back in the old days. I can only imagine Torts or Keenan or somebody like that. It's a different world now. That's what I think. That's some part of the disconnect too with Amber fans. No, that era of player is gone. Okay, this is a developmental league. Okay, so some of that stuff might have worked back in the 80s and 90s, certainly, but
I do think it's interesting as we continue to learn more about Michael Leone and develop our relationship with him. We get a chance to talk to him here every Tuesday at 4:25. There are clear differences between his style and the style of Seth Appert. What you had with Seth and what you have with Leone, two different things. And I get the sense that Leone is going to have more of an emphasis on having a team with a heavy hand, having a team that's, for as much as we heard pesky Amerks late last season, I think that Leone is actually going to, continue that and try to get these guys to play a little bit more physical, certainly than what we saw last weekend. But we'll see. We'll discuss it with the coach. He's going to stop by the sports bar here in just a few. And then we'll get to Week 13 and your waiver wire report. I want to make sure we have some time here for Michael F. Florio as well, as we'll help set your lineup here as games get underway, of course, on Thursday with the Bears and the Lions in that early window. So Michael Leone, Rochester Americans head coach, stopping by the sports bar next.
You're listening to the Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome back to We the Hobby. You know what time it is? A little something special today. Oh, Nick. Is that a corn? That ain't no corn. What? That's a super corn! Oh, wow.
Visit us at 23 Arlington Street in Rochester.
or visit BetQL.com today.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills players get one more day off and then practice resuming tomorrow going through the holiday week. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live thinks the Bills can get that run game going.
I think it could be a game for a guy like James Cook to take it, or Ray Davis, or both those guys together. San Francisco's vulnerable there, particularly without Nick Bosa in the lineup. If that's in case, this could be a game for the running back and the offensive line to flex a little bit.
We will talk some fantasy later this hour. Michael F. Florio from the NFL Network to join us here in the Sports Bar. Tage Thompson expect to be back in the lineup tomorrow night. The Sabres coming off a successful trip to California. Buffalo hosting Minnesota tomorrow night. You can hear that on 96.5 WCMF. That's because we have Amherst hockey tomorrow night. A team taking on Cleveland. We'll talk to head coach Mike Leone next here in the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Amherst looking to rebound from a 5-1 loss at hands of Utica on Saturday. Back on the ice, back on home ice, coming up tomorrow night against Cleveland. We welcome in Amherst head coach Michael Leone. Go with this time to join us every week at this time. Coach, you took Hershey to the brink, to overtime, got the 1 point out of that, and then a disappointing effort, I think, on Saturday against Utica. How would you rate your team's performance here from last weekend?
You look at the first game, I thought that might have been the best game we played all season. I mean, they're two-time defending champions, got a lot of returners. They play really hard. It's hard to generate offense, but I thought we did a really good job. I thought we carried the play. We did a really good job defending against that team because we had the puck a lot. And, there's 30 seconds left in the game, and we took, I would say, probably a undisciplined penalty. And, they really good team find ways to win. They scored with 8 seconds left and then made a really good play in overtime. And it was emotional for sure for the guys. I think we were, you're 8 seconds away from, I think that probably carried over a bit. Looking at the week, I didn't think we were probably as bad as the score was. I thought we still generated a lot of offense. We probably didn't execute on some opportunities that we should have, and sometimes those things happen. But overall, I really think we're playing team hockey. The results are probably not what the record is, but we're as a staff, we're really happy with how our young group is playing right now.
This is not an easy stretch for you here. 3 games in 4 nights. If we kind of break this up here just a little bit, and we start with Cleveland tomorrow night. Look, you've had success against the Monsters this season, unbeaten. This is a Cleveland team that is up on you in the division. Why have the Amherst? Why have you found success against the Monsters so far, Coach?
It was. I think they're really skilled. They're really good in transition. They got really good veteran players. You look at their Fix-Wolanski and Grimaldi, guys that are elite scorers in the league, and I felt, the times we've played them in the past, we've done a really good job minimizing their opportunities and making them defend. If you look at the games, I think the 2 games we played against them before, I think we might have 49 shots. So we've done a really good job against that group. Now, I will say this group that we're going to see is a lot different than the one we played. They're healthy. They have guys down. It'll be a good test for our group. But even going back to like you said, with the schedule, I mean, we played it was a really good test we knew as a staff to see where we're at. We played Laval twice, Hershey once, Toronto, and 4 games went to overtime. So I think sometimes as a coach, when you take the emotion out of it and you look at, the 4 overtime games, we lost 3 of them. If you win 3 of them, you're probably feeling a little different. But we played really well in those games, and it's good to know what our group and what the standard is to play against teams that are a little older, a little bit probably a little bit more veteran presence, but we've been really good in those games, so it'll be another good test for us tonight. Or tomorrow night.
Mike, got a question from a fan on Twitter, Frank, who reached out to me, and I imagine this was, with the emotion of the loss to Utica still raw in his mind, but he wanted me to do him a favor and ask you, Coach Leone, a simple question. Frank's question: why do the Amherst allow the physical teams like Laval and Hershey to push them around game after game? This is not a pesky team, a team that does not play heavy. Skill and heavy wins titles. What would you say to that, Coach?
I would say, if you really watch the game back, I actually think it was probably the opposite, to be honest with you. I thought if you look at the games we had, sure, there's probably a level of physicality we need to get to. I think that's a little bit with younger players. We want our team to play physical, but when you look at the game and the way the game is played, you want to possess the puck. You want to create where you're making teams defend, and it's a possession game, and you need to be a team possession base and have those times where you got to make teams defend. And if you look at all those games, I think the game in Laval, we might have 37 to 21 shots on goal, and I would say we've had two fights our last two games. I think what the guys are really understanding that I do think we're really playing with the level of physicality, because if you don't, you're probably going to chase the game. And I think we've outshot every opponent that we've had, and the guys are playing really good. I know sometimes the results aren't there, but I'm a big on the process over the outcome, and I think in the long term that's more of the success of where wins will come when it matters the most.
Give us your take on what you've seen out of Devin Levi so far. 2 games here, Coach. I mean, hey, he gets you overtime. You get the 2 points against Laval. A little different against Hershey, where 4 go in. So your opinion on what you've seen out of Levi here so far?
Yeah, he's been really good. I think in the game in Laval, he made a couple of really good saves on the special teams and on a 2-on-1 late at the end of the game. He's really poised, quick, makes key saves at big times. He's a really good goalie in this league, and we're really excited to have him.
Mike, what about reinforcements from the parent club? We're hearing that Tage Thompson might be getting healthy. The Sabres themselves might be getting healthier. Any reinforcements in time for this weekend? What do we think?
I think we'll know. Tomorrow morning. I think we may get one down, but we'll have to see how the morning goes up there for them.
Yeah, you do have traditionally good crowds here Wednesday and Friday night, and I know people were a little disappointed Saturday. You can't win them all there, Coach, but your thoughts on what you expect here as you're going to be home at least for the first 2 games of this 3-game and 4-night stretch? Yeah,
I expect us to, just come out and play a team game, and I think I know I keep saying it, but when you really watch the games and the people, internally, what we're really happy with the group is at, and I think we've been playing really well. Like I said, you change a couple of those overtime losses to wins, you're probably feeling a little different, and people are really happy, but that's the way it goes sometimes. As long as you keep playing team hockey and keep playing to our identity and the standard that we want to play with. But I think these are really important games, especially with, let's be real, like Syracuse is in the division, Cleveland's in the division. Those are full point swings, and I think the guys know. We're close to 20 games in, and these games are really important in the season. Especially, you always say there's always around Thanksgiving, you know where you're at, and then there's still a lot of room for growth with our group. There's a lot of, a few guys out of the lineup that are really important pieces to our team, and the guys that have been in the lineup have done a really nice job. Just make sure we're ready to go and we start the game on time.
Mike, you get through tomorrow night against Cleveland. Then you got Thanksgiving on Thursday. We know you're new to town. We know you're adapting to a new environment. What's your Thanksgiving plan? What do you got going on? You going to spend some time with the wife?
No, I actually won't see them. They're back home. So I'm actually going over the Prospold household.
Very good.
Check Thanksgiving.
Well, we weren't going to let you spend it alone. I was ready to invite you over to Danger's house. So
check Thanksgiving. What do they got on the menu? Have you heard?
I don't know. I'll find out.
Oh man, that's good. I was going to ask you what your Thanksgiving food take is. If there's one that you had to have, the one item on the table that you want to claim.
Pie, for sure.
Sweet pecan pie.
Yes.
Nice.
Are you making sure the morning skate is legitimately in the morning, so you get the something on TV? I don't know, around 12:30, maybe the kickoff is on Thursday, Coach.
Hang on. What did you say? Sorry, you broke up.
Oh, no
there.
problem. Are you having a morning skate? Are you making sure it's a morning skate on Thanksgiving for the reason, I don't know, something might be on TV at 12:30, the kickoff, I think is.
No, Thursday will be off. I'll give it a.
Boys are off. Boys are off on Thursday, and maybe Coach will take a peek to see how his Lions are doing against my Bears.
I'll make sure I'm to the TV at 12:30.
Love it. Well, Coach, have a happy holiday. Best of luck tomorrow night to you and the boys, and we'll talk again next week.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Coach.
Happy Thanksgiving there. Coach Mike Leone stopping by the sports bar and previewing this weekend's action for the Rochester Americans.
Yeah, Saturday was rough, but you took Hershey over. These are tough teams.
Hockey.
Yeah, it's hockey.
It's hockey. A lot of variance. We're going to get to Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, talk some fantasy football as we close up shop. Abbreviated sports bar today. Gino's got to get over to Fisher for some basketball action tonight on the Fan. Michael F. Florio first from NFL Network next.
You're listening to The Fan Rochester.
Hey, the spot, the Del Monte, is giving you two great ways to save on the two biggest shopping days of the year on Black Friday. For every $300 gift card purchased, receive an additional $50 gift card when you purchase online or in person. Then, on Cyber Monday, get the same great special in-store and online at DelMonteSpa.com. Give your loved ones the gift of self-care. Give them a gift card to the spa at the Del Monte. To learn more, visit DelMonteSpa.com.
Bills, Sabres, Amerks, all on your
San Francisco has not stopped the run when you put two tight ends on the field and just run it right at them. So, again, I've talked about it a lot this year. I would expect a double tight end or a 6 offensive line group that Buffalo's kind of majored in this year and to run the ball right at San Francisco with some of their duo concepts. The second thing is, one of the ways to take your shots on San Francisco's secondary is you got to attack their safeties. And whether it's a little bit of a concept where you're trying to get their eyes down in the backfield and you can throw a big post or a cross over the top, or you double move them. And so I think that's something to look at, is talking about that run game, but in their pass game, the ball, you can kick the ball to the perimeter all you want against San Francisco. They're going to give you that stuff. How they tackle in space is a long way, but to hit big plays, you got to go at these safeties. And it'll come down to, does Josh make the throw when that is there, unlike he did in Houston, or not?
There's Dan Orlovsky earlier today on One Bills Live. You're back in the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia, getting you ready for the holiday weekend, getting you ready for Week 13 in the NFL. And it's waiver wire day to talk waivers, to talk about the matchups coming up this weekend that all get underway on Thursday. Michael F. Florio from NFL Network, always good with his time to join us this time each week here in the sports bar. Mike, let's start with that Sunday night matchup that Orlovsky was just talking about there between the Bills and the Niners, because there's certainly plenty of fantasy intrigue around these two teams, with the Niners kind of limping into Orchard Park.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun game fantasy-wise. I think on the Bills side, you kind of know who to play. You play James Cook. Khalil Shakir is very much so in play. Amari Cooper. Keon Coleman a little bit more boom or bust, but I think you get away from the tight ends. I know I heard Dan just saying, like, you go 2 tight ends or 6 O-line. I agree with that, but the linebackers have been a strength for the 49ers defense. They have been elite at stopping tight ends this year. So I think you get away from Kincaid in fantasy this week. But on the flip side for the Niners, look, I think this is going to be the first vintage CMC game of the year. The Bills have struggled against pass-catching running backs all year long. I know they're getting healthier on defense, but CMC is the best pass-catching running back maybe of all time. So I think he is going to have a vintage game. But I think Juwan Jennings is a player that could really have a game against the Bills, because he has been their best option against split safety coverage and against zone coverage. And the Bills use those at one of the highest rates in the league. They're third highest in split safety. So I think whether Brock Purdy is out there or not, I expect Juwan Jennings to start doing his thing this week. But, yeah, obviously a much more intriguing game if Purdy is out there.
Yeah, last night, kind of a bummer, right? Fantastic game, right, in fantasy-wise. But there's J.K. Dobbins going out, and we don't have any news. At least I haven't seen anything about the severity of that knee injury, but it didn't sound promising last night during the broadcast. So my question is it's a waiver wire Tuesday. Are we going after Gus Edwards here, or is there somebody else that might be worth looking at in the Chargers' backfield?
Gus is the one to add right now. He just like Dobbins, has a long history with this coaching staff, played with under Greg Roman in Baltimore. I don't think he is going to give you what J.K. Dobbins was, either in the sense of volume or production, but he will lead in both of those categories. He will be the goal line runner for the Chargers, but he's not as explosive, not as great in the passing game, which is why I do think it's okay to take a shot on the secondary options there. I prefer Kamani Vidal of the two, but Hassan Haskins has been the one that's been active. The reason I prefer Vidal is because he is explosive. He led draft-eligible running backs, or was top 2 in explosive runs last year. He could force a lot of missed tackles. He could run through contact. So he might not give you what Gus Edwards might not give you what J.K. Dobbins did in terms of like big plays and explosiveness, but Vidal can help you bridge that gap. And I think there's an opportunity here for him to potentially see more work than we are expecting. So while Gus is the main ad, and if you have like number 1 priority or something like that, it is Gus, I do think Kamani Vidal is worth a flyer just in case, because there's a long history of injuries with J.K. Dobbins. We can't just say, oh, he'll be fine. He has missed a lot of time in his career.
Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, talking fantasy football in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. Feels like Washington's offense has come back down to earth here the last few weeks, and I'm curious as to whether or not there's anything of value on the waiver wire when you look at that backfield that has Austin Eckler now in concussion protocol, and Brian Robinson dealing with some injuries as well. Washington also a team that benefits from having the bye week in Week 14 next week, so maybe we see an extended rest for a couple of their running backs there. What direction, what tact are you taking here with Washington's backfield, Mike?
I think you go and you add Jeremy McNichols, who we have seen be the number 3 running back all year long for this Commanders team. And when Brian Robinson Jr. missed some time, he saw more workload than usual. And I think he has surprised people that he has not fully gone away despite the other 2 being healthy. But not only is Austin Eckler in concussion protocol this week, but Brian Robinson Jr. is also very banged up. Like, he has missed a lot of time due to that hamstring injury. Got tackled, and it looked like it was a bad knee injury. He missed some snaps in that game, ended up coming back, but did not look like himself again. So I believe Jeremy McNichols in a game like this against the Titans that should be close, could be a game where the Commanders have a lead and it's favorable game script for him. I think he slides in and plays the Austin Eckler role, and it depends then on Brian Robinson Jr.'s health, because if he is not 100%, maybe we see him get even a little bit more work on that. So no teams on bye, not like a go out at him, you have to start him. But if you are pressing at running back, and I know there's not been a lot of great waiver wire options at this position this year, he could be someone that just helps you survive the week.
For somebody that may be looking to get an upgrade here at tight end, or maybe just to kind of build depth, I didn't think I'd ever be asking you a question about Noah Gray, but that's 4 touchdowns now in 2 games. Is this somebody worth looking at? Is this just kind of an aberration in a long football season? What are your thoughts here about Gray and, for that matter, the Chiefs' offense overall here, Michael?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, right? Like, yes, 4 touchdowns in 2 games is amazing, but it is highly unsustainable. And if he's not getting the touchdowns, what production are we talking about with Noah Gray? So to me, like last week, I need 6 teams on bye. I didn't have Kyle Pitts in the league. Waiver wire was thin. I considered using Noah Gray. Instead, I went with Jatavion Sanders and was really kicking myself over that decision. But that's the kind of area where Noah Gray is needed. Like next week, 6 teams on bye. Okay, maybe then you need him. But like this week, I have him behind like Taysom Hill, Will Dissly, Zach Ertz, Hunter Henry over tight ends I would rather pick up if in need, if they are out there. As for the Chiefs offense, Patrick Mahomes is starting to look like Patrick Mahomes and perform like Patrick Mahomes again from a fantasy standpoint. Since week 8, he's averaging over 20 fantasy points per game, which is exactly what we drafted him to do. It just hasn't really translated to a whole bunch of success for everyone else around him. Like, Noah Gray's getting all these touchdowns. That's not great for fantasy. Travis Kelce, you're going to start because he's been more good than bad, but he is not elite anymore. DeAndre Hopkins' usage has gone down a bit as Xavier Worthy has started to ascend. I actually prefer Worthy over Hopkins this week if you're looking at the wide receivers there. But the Raiders have been tough. This is a game where I think it could be a lot of running the ball, and I think Mahomes puts up good numbers, but at the end of the day, you look around and you're like, okay, he did fine, but none of his pass catchers really excelled, at least in fantasy.
All right, so is this the week that we'll see out of the Kansas City backfield the return of Isaiah Pacheco, Mike?
I hope so. I mean, no one has been higher this year on Pacheco than me. Unfortunately, that really only lasted a week, but I had hope for him coming back last week. I understood them wanting to slow play it. They have a divisional game on a short week this week because they play on Friday. They didn't – look, I know it came down to the wire, but my thinking is they felt in that building, we don't need Isaiah Pacheco to beat the Carolina Panthers. Probably don't need him to beat the Las Vegas Raiders either. But now you get to get a game back of him, and then he gets a couple extra day of added rest. So I do think this is the week we see him back. My anticipation is that we see the workload split, at least early on, between him and Kareem Hunt. The matchup keeps them both in play as like RB2 or flex options. If you want to play it safe, though, and wait a week, I think that is fine. But we are getting to the point where it is very possible, not the way I drew it up at all, but it is possible that Isaiah Pacheco could still be a league winner this year if he is back to full health and able to give you Isaiah Pacheco-like numbers in the fantasy playoffs.
Michael, I got one more for you, and I never thought I'd be asking you a question. This is what makes the NFL great because there's so many twists and turns, and I don't know where you come down on eye test, right? But to me, when I'm watching that Chiefs-Panthers game, like, wow, Bryce Young actually may have figured this out here. He's making anticipatory throws. He's doing the things, and I would think maybe he's available. And particularly if you're in a super flex, they're taking on Tampa this week. Am I crazy for thinking that that's worth a look here? What are your thoughts on Carolina as we're entering the month of December?
You are not crazy at all. And yes, the eye test does matter, and it wasn't just 1 week for Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young has very much so looked the part ever since he has come back in and started for Andy Dalton when Dalton got in that car crash and couldn't start. I thought ever since then, this kid looks the part. He looks like you see what they saw coming out of Alabama and the potential that is there. The only thing is, and like, this is a fantastic matchup. Like you said, the Bucs have really struggled against quarterbacks outside of Tommy DeVito last week, but they are in towards the top of the league in fantasy points allowed to the position. I wish they had this matchup next week when 6 teams are on bye, because that is where you are going to need Bryce Young. Like this week, I understand quarterback position is thinning out a bit. We're getting to the time of the year where we get backups playing a lot more, stuff like that. But still, like, I'm looking around at all my leagues, and because of no buys, I don't really feel hard-pressed for quarterback in a lot of spots. So maybe if you are, I think he is worth a flyer, but this is just like, oh, man, why couldn't this have happened last week when 6 teams are on bye or next week when 6 teams are on bye? Because a lot of fantasy teams this week are going to be just fine at quarterback with no one on bye.
Mike, before we let you go, 2 things. 1, where can we get more of your content? Let our listeners know how you can help them win Week 13. And 2, what's your go-to when you're sitting down on Thursday? What's the part of the meal that you have to have on your plate?
All right. So first, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, at Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, be on Fantasy Live tomorrow, The Insiders, and then rotoballer.com, and I have a podcast called Florio's Football Show as well. For Thursday, though, my hot take is I think turkey is so overrated. I'm not a cranberries guy. Like, we're making ham and baked ziti at my house, but my go-to, mashed potatoes every time.
Okay. All right. He's a mashed potato guy. And, of course, I don't even know if you're Italian or not, Mike, but your last name ends in a vowel, so I'm going to say it. He's Italian. He's got the big ziti. I got the 1,000-layer lasagna at my house. Mike, come on over. Let's break some bread.
We would be making Tommy DeVito's family real happy right now.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, Michael. Thanks for all the time you spend with us here on the Sports Bar. Really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Happy Thanksgiving to you and all the listeners, and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. Thank you, Michael.
See what the world looks like when we come back from the holiday on Monday afternoon starting at 3 o'clock. Yes, we'll have Bills and Niners for you coming up here Sunday night with kickoff at 8:15. We invite you to check that out. We invite you to check Gino out tonight. St. John Fisher basketball coming up here on the Fan starting at 6 o'clock. If you missed any of our 2-hour semi-heavy lift show here as we wrap up for the holiday, Mike Leone, Michael F. Florio, Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard. Look for us wherever you get your podcasts. That includes the free-to-download Odyssey app, AUDACY, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Search The Sports Bar, and you'll find all of our content there. And a special thanks to everybody watching the video stream on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. Zach Gelb next on The Fan Rochester. Have a happy Thanksgiving.